Jonathan Martin, New York One political anchor Errol Lewis, Trump supporter Kayleigh McEnany, conservative Trump critic Tara Setmayer, and Trump New York campaign co-chair Joseph Borelli. Jonathan, just in terms of uncharted political waters here, how deeply are we into these uncharted waters with these latest comments by Trump?
We're pretty darn deep, Anderson. There's a few issues here. First of all, there's the obvious issue of racial politics. This is a country where race is the original sin, and now you have a candidate for the President of the United States who is playing on dangerous ground when you're talking about the racial heritage of a federal judge.
And not just, I mean, day after day after day. This is not just sort of a one-off comment.
Sure, this is now at least a week long here. But by the way, this isn't the first time where Trump has delved on a sort of racial terrain. Think back to the talking about Rubio and Cruz, talking about how there's not a lot of Cubans who are evangelicals, going to Salt Lake City, questioning Romney's faith. Race and religion have been a sort of staple of the Trump campaigns. This is not new. But the other issue is in this country, you have the presidency and you have the judiciary, and the powers are separate. And, Trump is now talking about an issue where he's attacking a federal judge. If he's president, what does that mean? Where you're going after somebody in the other branch of government. That's a huge deal.
Well, Anderson, if I can say it, I think Jonathan is right. I mean, I think we have been down this road before with Mr. Trump during the primary campaign, but I think what makes this different is this is a sitting federal judge. I mean, this man was confirmed by the entire United States Senate without objection, Democrats and Republicans. He took an oath. He took an oath to uphold the Constitution and to do so without bias. And, we respect the federal judiciary, and that doesn't mean that everybody in the federal judiciary is perfect, right? And judges can make mistakes, but we respect the institution of the federal judiciary.
Well, it's also, I mean, again, he's linking his rulings to his race, which is, I mean, you look at Merriam-Webster's definition of racism, it's a belief that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capacities, and goes on to say, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. I mean, the idea that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capacities, that is what Donald Trump is saying here, that his Mexican heritage, although Trump continues to just say he's Mexican, is influenced by is
sure. And I think everybody watching this understands exactly what the problem is. They don't need a dictionary to sort of point them to what exactly is wrong here. On a human level, it's even more distressing when you look up that Judge Curiel, before he became a judge, was a prosecutor who was targeted for assassination by one of the Mexican cartels, had to be put in sort of a special protected status with marshals following him. This went on for over a year. Really, literally, life on the line for the United States, at a very troubled time, in a very troubled part of the world. And he has shown admirable, I think, restraint. He's doing what a judge is supposed to do, which is to say nothing and to just kind of try to judge the case on its merits. So it's a real blunder by candidate Trump, really.
Kayleigh, I mean, as a Trump supporter, you talked about this yesterday, saying this has no place in the discourse. Trump is clearly just doubling down on it. I mean, he's had 24 hours to kind of think about it at the very least. And clearly, he's just continuing with it.
And he shouldn't, because, it's obvious to me, it's irrational, rather, to think that because someone's Mexican, they would not be for you because you support a wall. In fact, there are many Mexicans who support the idea of building a wall.
By the way, again, he's not Mexican, he's American. He's just of Mexican heritage.
Oh, sure,
right.
But I'm making the underlying premise is that if you're Mexican, somehow you're going to be biased towards Trump because you don't like the idea of building the wall, which, in fact, there are many Mexicans who support that idea. So that's the problem with the underlying logic. But I think the bigger picture here is Donald Trump is not a racist. We can call him that all that we'd like. He is not that. If he was, in fact, that, we would have tons and tons of his employees coming out and giving us evidence of these practices.
But that notion is, is that a racist idea? The notion that race is determinant in whether that a black judge can't rule on issues that relate to African Americans, or
well, first of all, being Mexican's a national identity. It's not a race. If he would have said this judge is Hispanic and therefore, he can't rule this way or is biased, then that would be a racist idea. Perhaps this is an ethnicity we're talking about. He's linking the idea that perhaps because he has, I don't believe in the idea, like I've said, but in his head he is saying, look, this guy is of Mexican heritage. I am for building a wall between this country and my country. Therefore, I think that this guy might be biased given the actions he has taken. I don't buy into that logic. I don't like it. Do I think that that means that Trump is a racist who believes in the dehumanization of another race, the inferiority of another race? Absolutely not. I don't think that's the case, and I think if that was the case, you would have tons and tons of employees coming out to make that case on national television. They are simply not.
Then, Tara, to have him follow it up though, and point to somebody in the audience and say, "My African American," is that part of a pattern, or is that just a mistake, a verbal mistake?
Listen, if it was a one-off, like you said before, and he said it just, very inartfully, then okay, well, maybe. But it's not. He's done this time and time again, when he just says whatever comes out of whatever he's thinking just comes out of his mouth. And then on top of everything else, the context, it just doesn't sound good. I mean, when you talk about look at my African American, the fact that he felt the need to point someone out because they're black and support him is, again, the racial balkanization of this country that we as conservatives have fought so long against and hard against Democrats who do this all the time with racial identity. But I want to make a point. There actually have been cases of racism against Donald Trump. In the 70s, he was sued for housing discrimination because they wouldn't rent to black renters in his apartments in New York City. Black dealers sued the Trump organization for discrimination, for workplace discrimination in Atlantic City. So this has happened before, and Trump has run into this before.
So do you believe that Trump believes in the inferiority of another race, and he believes he's superior to that race?
I believe what his words, actions, the history, the definition that Anderson just wrote makes it very difficult to support the other side, and I'm not quite sure how you can.
Quite a claim.
I think the African American comment today, to make a lot of hay out of it, is kind of foolish. He was obviously going through a litany of African American supporters. He's been criticized for not having African American supporters. He was reading through some anecdotes about how many supporters he may have who happen to be African American. He saw someone in the audience. He used a stupid word. As far as the judge, look, I'm objective. You have to put me in the category of Trump supporters who do essentially want change in the country, but you have to shake your head every time, he says something that is a bit foolish. He has some points with critiquing the judge for his conduct. Just saying because he's a Mexican is not probably the right way to go.
Let me just ask you, if he becomes president, I mean, is this the kind of stuff you want the president to be talking about this lawsuit that he's involved with and this judge? And, I mean, is this language that a president of the United States should be using targeting a judge because of a lawsuit that he happens to be involved with?
Well, I think he's getting questioned now because he's running a campaign for president. I think once he's president of the United States, I imagine the media will probably digress from asking him questions about a lot of the things going on in his personal life. But that said, look, this is the year of the outsider. We want someone to speak a little bit more free. You compare that with Hillary Clinton, who focus groups everything, who won't release what she said to major companies. I think people at the end of the day are going to still gravitate towards the person who speaks a bit freely.
If Hillary Clinton had said to somebody in the audience, there's my African American.
She has had her own racist comments over the years.
And if Hillary Clinton, but it was saying about the ethnicity of a sitting federal judge, and that person was incapable of ruling fairly because of their ethnicity, you don't think people would be all over Hillary Clinton?
They would be all over her, but I think you have a point here that we are very quick to call people racist in this country. It's one of the most horrible accusations.
I agree with that.
It's one of the most horrible accusations
and it's something very impossible to defend yourself against.
Absolutely, and I look at the scrutiny of Hillary Clinton over the super predator comment. I don't think that she was at all racist in that moment. I think people were unduly critical of her when she was trying to pass a bill that she really believed in, and they were unduly critical of her language. I just think we're very quick in this country to throw around racism.
I don't throw the race card easily, and the comments about the Mexican judge is inherently racist. When you say someone is incapable of being able to be a judge on a case that has nothing even to do with race, it has to do with a fraud case, that's inherently racist. So if you substitute with Christian, does that mean a Christian judge can't preside over an Islamic Muslim terrorist case? Does that mean a black judge can't preside over white cases? I mean, that right there.
Right, if he had said, oh, well, you know what, this guy's Jewish, he can't.
It would never be acceptable in any other sense. This is indefensible. And like I said, I don't throw the race card easily. I think, yes, it is thrown around easily. Not in this case. I'm sorry.
All right, let's take a quick break. We're going to have a lot more on this. There's more breaking news. Hillary Clinton firing off new attacks against